Anger is an emotion that occurs when we think we have been mistreated, or maybe we've been harmed by someone, or we feel like we have been wronged. And it's usually triggered by an emotional hurt of some sort. When we read God's word and looking for what he says about anger, we read things like, don't sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you're still angry, for anger gives a foothold to the devil. That's from Ephesians 4:26 and 27. Nowhere in the Bible does it say we can't be angry, or nowhere in the Bible does it say it's wrong, but it does help us to see that it's about what we do with the anger and how we respond. And simply put, there's really two types of anger. There's constructive anger and destructive. Constructive, or sometimes we call it righteous anger, simply put is just being angry at what makes God angry, like injustice and mistreatment and harm of other people. But then there's destructive anger, and yes, it's the kind of things that we probably think of right off the top of our heads, like rage and aggression and violence and abuse, and it is those things. But there's some other ways that we can have destructive anger that aren't so obvious, like stuffing it, or denying it, or repressing it, or seeking revenge, or projecting it onto others, or even being passive aggressive. So how do we deal with it? How do we deal with anger and honor God's word? Well, first of all, it's important to know that we do have a choice. The enemy wants to get us in a place where we believe that we don't, that we are just at the mercy of our emotions that lead us to do and say things that we don't have control over. And simply put, that is not true. When we start to feel angry, God gives us the ability by the power of his Spirit to stop and to evaluate our thoughts and align them with his truth by holding captive the thoughts that are not true, that lead us to do and say things that aren't true or aren't right. So when we stop for a moment and we're able to step away and clear out some mental space in our heads to kind of process it and calm down and take some quiet moments, we can let the Lord actually speak to us. But if we don't do that and step away, then we really have trouble hearing the voice of God in the moment. So going below the surface of the offense to what really is going on. What is the deeper, more vulnerable emotion? Maybe it's the current feeling, the current situation is bringing up old painful memories. That happens a lot to us. Or it's hard, whatever that is, but being willing to go there and allow the Lord to show us what is going on at a deeper level. And take all of that to the Lord first. Pour it out to him. He desires to be in relationship with us, and he wants to talk to us about the good stuff and the bad and the hard stuff. After you've given yourself some space and talked to the Lord, ask yourself, what is the next right step? Not big picture, not way on down the road, but in that moment, in that very situation, what is the next right step? How could you walk in the wisdom and courage of the Lord to do something maybe that you've never done before? Maybe it's being honest about your emotions. Maybe it's being honest about what's really going on for the very first time. Maybe it's talking to someone about it. Or maybe it's a call to forgive. Forgiveness so many times can be hard for us, but anger and unforgiveness can develop into bitterness if we're not careful, which harms us in so many ways. Now, forgiving doesn't mean condoning what has happened to us, but it's really a posture. It's a posture of trusting God with the outcome, the retribution, and the outcome of the future. Whatever the next step is for you, remember this truth. God's love never changes. No matter how much our emotions change, no matter how big our emotions are, God's love never changes. He doesn't give up on us. He doesn't turn a deaf ear to us in anger towards us. He loves us so much that through his son Jesus, he's given us the free gift of abundant life of salvation, but also for peace and hope and joy for this life.